Hi there, welcome to my video on the Inverness Half Marathon, which took place on the 8th of March 2020. In this video I've got quite a lot of clips of the race itself, but before we get on to that, I'll tell you a little bit about Inverness, how to get there, the facilities at the start and finish line, the route itself, and things like the registration procedure. Okay, so first up, where is Inverness? Inverness is a city located in the northeast of Scotland, United Kingdom. It's about a 4-hour car journey from Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland. Or if you want to go by train, that takes probably about 3.5 hours, if you get a direct train, that is, without any changes. Alternatively, if you want to go by bus, quite a bit cheaper, that takes about 4 hours. Inverness does have an airport, although I've never flown there before, so I don't know what the prices are like or what the airport is like, but there are pretty regular flights, so I'm told. I would recommend going by car or train, and that's because of the scenery that you get to see. If you're travelling by train up to Inverness, you'll go across the famous Fourth Rail Bridge. That's the great big bridge that crosses the Firth of Forth. If you're driving, you'll go across one of the new bridges across the Firth of Forth, and you'll get to see the Fourth Rail Bridge as you're driving across the bridge. The scenery, once you head towards a highland, is absolutely fantastic. You'll travel through the Cairngorm National Park, which is a very large mountain range in Scotland. Each year, the Inverness Half Marathon takes place towards the end of February or the start of March. So if you're in luck, those mountains will be covered in snow, and it makes for a really nice journey up to Inverness. There is plenty of accommodation in and around Inverness, even when the half marathon was on. I booked my accommodation quite late, probably a week or so before the race itself. I paid probably about 100 UK pounds, which is about 115 US dollars. My accommodation was pretty good, although if you're on a tighter budget or have a bit more money to spend, you'll probably be okay in finding accommodation that meets your needs. What I would say though is all the good places do get booked up quite quickly, as they would, so definitely book your hotel as soon as you've registered for the race. That way you'll be almost certain to get something that meets your budget. Registering and signing up to the race is very simple. They've got an easy to use website, www.invernesshalfmarathon.co.uk. It cost me about 38 UK pounds, which is about 44 US dollars. This year, the bib numbers were sent out through the mail prior to the race. Previous years when I've done this event, you had to collect the bib numbers on the day or the day before the event. I like getting the bib numbers in the post prior to the event, just because it gives me one less thing to think about on race day itself. The race starts about 2 miles from Edinburgh city centre, next to the River Ness, near Boot Leisure Centre. Sorry, I probably pronounced that incorrectly. On the day of the race, the main meeting point really is the sports hall of the leisure centre. In there is where you'll find the baggage drop. There's facilities to get food, to get changed, there's showers and toilets available, and there's also a couple of sports shops that have stalls in there selling bits and pieces of sports equipment, such as gels, running shoes, t-shirts, etc. As I said, the leisure centre is also where the baggage drop is. One thing I like about this race is that the finish line is also very close to the start line, so basically you pick your bag up at exactly the same place where you dropped it off. The leisure centre is also a good place to shelter from the weather. This year the running conditions were almost perfect. It was quite sunny, not very hot, virtually no wind. However, previous years when I've done this run, the weather has been quite wild. There was snow, hail, lots of rain, and it was also quite windy. But like I said, this year, none of that. Race conditions were perfect. The only downside to the location of the start line is the lack of parking facilities. On race day, there's virtually no chance of you getting parked near to the start line. So what I did is I parked in the city centre of Inverness and walked about 2 miles to the start line. The walk is really nice. You walk along the River Ness. The scenery is very picturesque. Now on to the details of the route itself. At about 30 minutes before the start of the race, a bagpiping band piped us on the walk from the leisure centre to the start line. I have some footage of that coming up just before the race footage. Then, at about 11:30, the 2,940 of us runners started the race. The first mile and a half was along the banks of the River Ness towards the city centre. The route itself was mainly flat, although there were some small sections that had a bit of an incline and a bit of a decline. There weren't many sections like that, and to be honest, the inclines weren't that strenuous. After about a mile and a half, we crossed the River Ness and ran back along the other side of the bank towards the countryside. At about miles 3 and 4, we were pretty much in the countryside at this point. All of the route for the entire race was either on closed roads or reduced traffic roads. There were also some sections where we ran purely on pavements. Miles 4 and 5 was really where I would say the biggest incline was, but as I said, to be honest, it wasn't too steep. At around the 6 or 7 mile mark, we headed back towards the city centre. This part was predominantly in a suburban location, going through housing estates, past some schools and some shops. At mile 10ish, again, we reached the bank of the River Ness and followed it along towards the city centre. At around mile 11, I unfortunately tripped and had quite a big fall, landed in a rather large puddle. I was trying to do my bit for the environment by putting my used energy gel packet in a bin, lost my footing and fell over. Big thank you to the 2 runners who stopped to see if I was okay. I scraped my hands and knees and elbow, but I was okay. I was able to get up, carry on to the end. Just before mile 12, we crossed the River Ness again and headed back along the riverbank towards a finishing line, which was a small athletic stadium at the leisure centre. My time was about 2 hours 10 minutes, which was at least 15 minutes slower than last year. That was probably down to lack of training and lack of fitness. The winner this year was sorry for the incorrect pronunciation, Gabriel Selassie. He did it in a time of 1 hour, 5 minutes and 6 seconds. The fastest female across the finishing line was Liz Abbott in a time of 1 hour, 17 minutes and 53 seconds. Some other information about the route. There were water stations at about every 4 miles. One of the water stations near the end also gave out energy gels. There were toilets en route, but these were very few and far between. No headphones were allowed, and there were no pacers. Okay, so enough of me talking. Now for some footage of the race. The first couple of minutes will show the bagpipers piping us down to the start line.
doing great. Well,
Just after the finishing line, we were given bananas, apples and some energy gels and a bottle of water. This year's medal and t-shirt were also really nice. Despite my fall, I really enjoyed the run. Sadly, I expect this will probably be my last running event in a long time due to all of the understandable cancellations because of the situation at the moment going on around the world. Thanks for watching.